Hello, and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I am glad you joined us again today. And I just want to start out giving a shout out to our show sponsor, Dr. Stephen Hotze with the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. He's just been a great supporter of the pro life movement, very compassionate for women. And so we just want to show our appreciation by giving him a shout out. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show or even donating to the show, boy, that would be awesome. We would love to have you. And you can contact me at my email address, which is on my Facebook page or my website. You can go there. I think my producer's putting some information down there on the screen that you can contact us with. So I would like to introduce now my awesome co-host, Mary Browning, and she'll come in and kind of give us a little update and a little warning.
Good. Well, hello. Thank you, Molly. I don't know when people will listen, morning or afternoon, so I shouldn't be saying anything about that. But we do want listeners and viewers to be warned that today we will be hearing about a woman's abortion story and some other stories about the experience of working a helpline. So if you're listening today and you find yourself having an emotional reaction to some of the things that are said, we just want you to know that you could see that as an invitation for healing. We'll have opportunities of where you can find healing in your area. And if you have abortion in your past, you might be triggered today. You might have an emotional response. Or if you've helped someone that's have an abortion, or if you had a child and there was an abortion and you didn't want the abortion, there are all kinds of ways that we can feel an emotional response to what's being said today. And also, because of our content today, if you are listening and there are young people who are listening with you, you may want to reconsider or take some measures where they won't hear all the content today. Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Mary. And I just want to remind people that they can go to operationoutcry.org to tap into some different abortion recovery programs that are out there. And we do invite you, if you've had an abortion, it's hurt you, you regret it, you weren't fully informed by the abortion provider about options or about the risks involved and the aftermath and those kind of things. If you want someone to know that, like for me, I needed someone to know how abortion hurt me, then on the operationoutcry.org website are a link to an affidavit that you can fill out, or a declaration is what it's called. And it's a questionnaire about your abortion experience. And you can fill that out. You can use your full name or just your initials or just your first name. And this information can be used to educate lawmakers, in legal cases, as evidence, as supporting evidence that abortion does hurt women and men and even family members. So if you're ready to do that, we invite you to fill out a declaration. And like we said, you can be contacted or not be contacted by using your full name or just partial. So, and we're looking for those declarations, aren't we, Mary?
Yes, we are.
I mean,
Molly.
We have about 4,000 right now, or over 4,000. I don't know. I can't remember the number. You might be able to remember.
It's close to 5,000.
Close to 5,000. And we want you to join us. I mean, because, women are not given the full information. Many women are forced, pressured, or coerced into having an unwanted abortion decision. And this information is very needed to educate, like we said, policymakers and the courts. So we invite you to check out operationoutcry.org. Okay, now, Mary, we have a special guest. Now, you know her.
I do.
And I just met her, and her name is Yolanda. Now, I don't have her last name in front of me.
Gutierrez.
Okay, Gutierrez, or is it Gutierrez or Gutierrez?
I think you said it right.
Gutierrez, okay.
Gutierrez.
Yolanda Gutierrez. And Yolanda, just come on in. We want to welcome you to the show, and we want you to just give a little introduction to our audience.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for the invite. And it's actually Yzquierdo, but it's both last names. Yzquierdo, but both last names are, yes, you got to roll your R's there.
Well, I can
But
roll my R's.
okay, good. Good. Well, thank you again for the invite. Uh, did you
We
want me
would,
to
Yeah.
we would love to hear, Yolanda, as our listeners know and our viewers, Molly and I have abortion in our past, and we know you do as well. So
Yes.
let's start with that story.
Okay. Um, over 40 years ago now, when I was 18, I got pregnant and I was just out of high school and I was just getting ready to go to college and I didn't have a job. And actually, my father had just passed away just months prior to that, and I found out I was pregnant. Um, Unfortunately, my boyfriend at the time, I was such a naive young Catholic girl. He was getting heavily involved in drugs and started, getting arrested. And I did tell him I was pregnant, but he didn't offer any help, and nor was really there wasn't any way he could help or support me, much as a baby. I did tell my family. It just kind of seemed to blow up from there. There wasn't any support. There was a lot of judgments, a lot of anger, a lot of criticism. And I just felt at that point that I didn't have much of a choice. It's like I didn't have a job, I wasn't in school, I didn't have anything. And so, after a lot of talking and a lot of yelling, unfortunately, I just felt that was my only option. And so, especially, which was very difficult because I did vacillate quite a bit. And I would, think, oh, I could do this on my own. Now, how in the world I was going to do it, I had no clue. Because 40 years ago, I didn't know how much support there was out there. I just thought it would have to come from my family. And felt pretty clear it wasn't going to come from there at the time. That's how I felt. So I went ahead and I went ahead with the abortion. But even that, after that, um, there's a part of you that thinks that, okay, my problem's going to be solved. I can go back to normal and I can just get back to my life. But little did I know. Um, I felt even more ostracized from my family because now I've had an abortion. So didn't really see my family much after that. Needless to say, I went into a severe depression. And I started turning to alcohol. I would start dabbling in drugs. I got to where I just didn't care about myself. And it was just, I kept finding myself just more and more isolated. And the crazy thing is that in all this isolation and this depression, it just turned from like into years and years. And there was a lot of anger as well. And I never really associated that the anger came from the abortion and everything, not just at myself, but at everybody involved. And
Yolanda, we hear that, and that's part of my story as well, that I didn't connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
not at all.
so we could have listeners and viewers out there who also might have abortion in their past and have some challenges, but not recognize that they're connected.
That's
Was
right.
there a time when you began to see that the abortion was at the root of some of your problems, or
Mary, unfortunately, it took me decades, literally, where I just wasn't really very close to my family. I had some friends, and the close friends would, turned out to be somebody else who maybe had an abortion because like we could relate to each other. But it literally took me decades, and because I was just so isolated, and I did start to get help as far as I did start going to counseling. I started trying to. I knew it's like there's something wrong with me.
Like,
And yes,
like
and I
what's
did.
going on? Like, why am I depressed? Why am I so angry? Why
Right.
do I feel so alone?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I knew in the back of my head everything went back to my abortion. But when you go to a therapist office, you finally get up the courage to say something. But even still, it just didn't ever help it help it along. And I had stopped going to church because I felt like, how in the world can I go to church? How in the world can I sit in a church, after what I did, and, pray to God or ask God for forgiveness, or just be in a church, period.
So
So
were you feeling like it was an unforgivable sin, or just a violation that separated you from the Lord? Which it could be both of those things,
it
but
was actually both, Molly. And it's funny because I know that there's an unforgivable sin, but this, I used to always hear, because I mean, I've heard about Jesus dying on the cross for all of us, but there was a part of me, and even until later years, I would be sitting in church when I did finally start going back to church. I would be sitting in church and I would hear that, and I would be thinking in my head, yes, he died for our sins, but this,
yeah,
how could this possibly be included? How in the world could I be forgiven for this? And there was just always this something that just felt like, it just, I kept thinking, but if he knew, or if people knew, or if, you know, I just used to always feel that I was the exception. And we think that we're so alone and that nobody else knows and understands,
mhm.
and that,
we
you
kind
just
we
sit
kind of
there.
keep it a secret, right? We keep it a secret,
Very much so.
and then in that secrecy, we're thinking, first of all, we're ashamed or afraid to say anything. We're afraid to tell people this because we don't know what their reaction would be, but we're feeling it would be condemnation and judgment. And then when we stay in that secrecy, then we feel isolated and that we're all alone and there's no one else out there. But
Exactly.
that is
And
not
that,
true. It's not true. It's
no.
just the way that keeps us in bondage when we stay in secrecy. But it's so common. It is so common, especially in the church or with Christian women. That.
Yes.
Hmm.
And it's hard to make friends and have relationships because, when you meet a new friend and you think, oh, great, I'm starting a new relationship, but, the first thing out of your mouth isn't going to be, oh, yeah, I've been dealing with depression for so long because I had an abortion. I mean, you're just, unfortunately, you're just not going to say that. And so, and then I have had times when I have confided in a friend and it backfired on me because not everybody understands. And I get that, but I didn't need more judgment. I needed support, and I didn't
Yolanda,
get.
if we have listeners out there that um, that don't really feel prepared if someone shares their abortion story with them, do
Hmm.
you have advice for them? What would you let them know?
Just to listen, just to hear them out and listen to them, because the strange thing about this, Molly, just like you said, it's such a secret. We can't ever talk about it. And that's exactly what you need to do to
Yeah.
heal, is to start talking about it. And there's no, there's usually not a safe place. Tons of people can go to AA groups and stuff, or different groups like that, and talk about it. But there's really no safe place to go and talk about your abortion and
Right.
everything that it entails. And so I understand it's hard for people to comprehend and understand that, but for whatever reason somebody chooses this, the whole point is that they are hurting and they need to talk about it and to begin to heal. And talking is a way to do that, to
Yeah.
get it out.
That's so good. You need to listen. Number one, listen. Don't
Yes.
pass judgment.
Yes.
And recognize that there's been a loss. There's a loss of
Yes.
life. There's a loss of a child, whether it's because we made that decision or it happened naturally. It's a loss no matter what. And women like Yolanda and Mary and myself and millions of others need someone that we can talk to. We have to get it out, and being empathetic. You don't have to fix it, but judging and condemning, or saying, well, why you feel that
Yes.
way, it was your choice or whatever. Those kind of comments don't help. It keeps us more so in bondage. But anyway, that was good advice, Yolanda. Just listen.
Yes.
Hmm.
Thank
Hmm.
you,
Just
Yolanda. Thank you,
listen.
Molly.
Hmm. And
We have,
so, like, oh, you had a question, Mary? I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I had a different question. So if you have
Okay.
something on the same train of thought,
Okay, well, it was just kind of like many of us, it takes decades for us to start dealing with that loss through abortion. And, Mary and I've talked about this many times on our show, is that because when we go have an abortion, we're not told of the emotional, the psychological, or even the physical consequences and the risks that can come from it. So when we start having, like we mentioned earlier, these emotional responses, we don't always associate it with that abortion experience. And that's why Mary gave a trigger warning today. Because if you've had an abortion in your past and this discussion is triggering some kind of an emotion with you, anger, sadness, whatever, it's related to that abortion experience. And there's healing and available. And that's kind of what we wanted to talk about, how long it took you to go through healing. But Mary, was that your question or?
it's related to that, Molly, because the question I really wanted to acknowledge Yolanda that she did go to counseling and did tell her counselor. But I think even counselors are not recognizing the trauma and what happens when people suffer abortion loss, really, the pain around that. So that's sort of a lead into.
Yeah.
So when did you then begin to recognize that abortion was at the core, or you began to take other steps?
I was so blessed that at my church that I had started attending, they offered a forgiveness set free class. And the second I saw it in the bulletin, I thought, okay, I got to do this. I said, no matter what, I have to do it. I didn't want to do it, I'll be honest, but I knew I had to. So I signed up and I went through the course, and it did help me. But as you know, dealing with the pain of abortion, it is so difficult. So, and really dealing with all of it because there's so much. Um, I had met another friend at church, and she had confided in me that she had had an abortion and that she attended a Rachel's Vineyard retreat, and she suggested that I do the same. And when she first told me, I was just like, no, I don't need to do that. I've already done my healing. I'm like, I'm fine, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to face the pain anymore.
Go back
But
there.
I went ahead and I signed up for that, and it was such a blessing and freedom that I truly received. I never felt like that before. I truly felt forgiven finally. It was an experience that I'm so grateful to the Lord that that's even available, because that's what has led me to the helpline. That's what's held me to this today. Because for so long, I couldn't even say the word abortion. I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I was so fearful, and it was such a secret. Can't say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I understand what the triggers, because even now I'm triggered, but it doesn't lead me to days and weeks and months of depression. It's just, this is this
Something
is what
you
I
recognize, something you recognize, and you know you got to
yes.
deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is what I try to convey to some of my callers that I talk to. The few that we do happen to call who are actually contemplating abortion, because most of the women that we do and men that we talk to, it's post-abortion support.
So we're talking about the H3 helpline, which is an
Yes.
abortion helpline that you can call prior
Yes.
to or after, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct. And we're available 24/7. Everyone who answers the phone line has experienced an abortion, so they understand the pain of it and where you're coming from. Um, but I just tried to convey that it's, to try to get out of the fear that you're in right now, this moment that you're pregnant, and you're just like, because how I felt at the time, just didn't want to be pregnant anymore. But, as we know, that doesn't just go away. And it's just like, for them to think about, not today, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, how old will their child be? What are all the experiences that you're going to miss out on, not having known that child? Because that still happens to me even
Mm,
today.
yeah.
I,
Yeah, that lost motherhood, that lost opportunity to love and
yes,
nurture, a child that was once in your womb, and all the beautiful things that motherhood gives us. And
yes,
and so it is going to impact us no matter what, because
yes,
that child was once in our womb and no longer there. So it's going
Yes.
to impact us no matter where
Mhm.
you're at emotionally, or,
Mhm.
or mentally, or educationally. Doesn't matter. It's going
yes,
to impact us. I did have a question. I was going to make a comment because you'd gone through Forgiven and Set Free. I had gone through several abortion recovery programs, and they're so important. But for me, and it sounded like for you too, Yolanda, that the first one wasn't enough. And it's so for me, it's like you go through it, and God's going to do some big things through those recovery programs. He's going to move, He's going to touch you, you're going to start healing. But it wasn't the end for me. It wasn't all over. My healing journey was not over after the end of that abortion recovery group. It continued through the years, because, like you
yes,
mentioned, Yolanda, it hurts you in so many different ways, and so deeply in different ways, that there's no way you can get through all of that in a 12-week course, or a weekend. But they're vital. It's vital to go through them, because that's when a lot of healing does take place, and that's when you can continue doing that. But it does bring it, having an opportunity to grieve the loss of my child,
Yes.
having understanding God's love for me, and His forgiveness and His atonement. Those things were so important. But your healing does take a journey, for me anyway.
yes. And I found the same thing for me because, to be honest with you, I'm going to be really honest because even just going through the Forgiven and Set Free, I was one of those bad students where I was doing my homework right before class because again, having to deal with the pain, it was so difficult. And I knew I needed to face it, but it was a struggle. It was hard. I had the support of the leader. There was great support, but it was still dredging up the past, dredging up the pain. And it did help me. It did help me to remember and to realize about being forgiven. And it did show me where a lot of my anger came from, where I was so surprised for some reason. I never connected the dots, but
Mhm.
that made me realize that's why I've been so angry for so long. And for some reason, I had not connected it. And I think that's kind of why it's difficult when I talk to some women who say, I don't get it. I talked to a friend of mine and they told me they had an abortion and they're fine. It doesn't bother them. And like, there's something in their life, I can guarantee that it's affecting them one
It's
way or
called denial.
another.
It's called
Yes.
denial. I have a degree in psychology, and I've been through a
Yes.
lot of training, and it's called denial. And there's justification, there's rationalization, there's projection, there's all these things that come with it's a coping. It's trying to help you cope with.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I've even seen medical research that, and we've had some of those medical doctors on our show saying, well, so many women, it doesn't
Mhm.
bother them. And then this, I said, yeah, but hello, don't you remember the denial stage, the
Mhm.
Yeah.
coping stages,
Yeah.
because I didn't think it bothered me for a good, 15 years, 12, 13, something like that. I didn't think it bothered me either. But then, boy, you look back at all of the connecting dots, that,
Yes.
oh, it was all abortion related. And
Yes.
there's other things, because normally in our life we have other kind of traumas. Growing up, there's a lot of sexual abuse, or divorce, or whatever. There's other things that happen that we need to heal from
Yes.
too. But
Mhm.
boy, that abortion really, uh, really hurts us in so many ways.
It does.
So you were talking about the H3 helpline, and how this, and we want y'all that's listening to get this number down. It's on the screen, and let everybody know that there's helplines available for women who are either contemplating an abortion or have had an abortion. And so, Yolanda, this is a 24/7 phone number, correct?
Yes, correct.
And
And we're available 365 days a year. There's someone on call every day for a 24-hour period. And again, they have experienced abortion, so they understand what pain you're feeling.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter. I've had some women who've called me. I mean, it's been days since they had their abortion, weeks, months, but I have spoken with some women. It's been 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And
mm,
it's just coming to head, and they need to speak to somebody about it. It's a safe place you can call. It's confidential. No one's going to judge you. We're here to listen to you, and just so that you know that there is help and support out there. So yes, please call, no matter how long ago. I've even talked to some women who kind of didn't want to go to Rachel's Vineyard because they were older, and they thought, well, I'm so old, I'm older. Why would I go? There's probably going to be young women there. It doesn't matter how old you were or are. It is such a safe healing place to go, where you can get the support that you need and the healing that you need to help you get through this, and just
Yes.
finally, just to recover from it, just to let
Mhm.
that secret go.
to let it out.
Yes.
It's kind
Mhm.
of like
Yes.
purging a poison. And just
Yes.
like we've heard someone on our program say that secrets make you sick. And you've been carrying this poison in this sickness in you for so long. And what I was thinking when you were saying it doesn't matter how long ago it's been or how old you are, but at a certain age, when I got to be a certain age, like in my mid 40s, it started hitting me like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be missing grandchildren from
Yes.
these
Mhm.
children that I
Mhm.
aborted. So it kind of affects you
Yeah.
even later in life, when you can look back and say, wow, because I aborted a child, I'm not going to have grandchildren by this
Mhm.
child. And so you start thinking about those things in your older years. And
Yes.
so, if that's happening, and it's on your mind and it's still affecting you, gosh, age does not matter. What matters
No.
is healing. That's what matters,
Yes.
to
Yes.
Yes.
spend the rest of your life in a healed place, and not in a
Yes.
place of secrecy or
Yes.
remorse, or these negative feelings you can have about yourself. So thank you for
Yes.
saying that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we have some time left, and because you work for the H3 helpline, can you share some stories, especially about some of your recent calls? We have 2 minutes left, so maybe end with a story about one of your memorable calls, and then encourage women to seek healing.
Um, a lot of what's happening nowadays, unfortunately, because of the abortion pills, these abortions are actually happening in people's homes. I even spoke to a young girl who was in her bedroom by herself. Her parents were in the other room, and they did not know what was going
Mm,
on.
mm,
You never know. I understand how scared it is to tell a parent, but it's very important just to make sure that you can call and try to get the help that you need, because you never know. Every woman is different, every body is different. So you just really want to make sure that there's some kind of support there for you in case something goes wrong, in case you need some help. But again, mainly on the calls, it's just that there's so many people that are hurting from this, and we just truly are doing this to give them hope, to know that healing is possible and they don't have to carry this, forever, that there is really hope. And that's why Jesus died on the cross for us. So
oopsie, sorry.
that's okay.
Yolanda, I just want to acknowledge that you've come such a long way from the decades of not knowing what the source
Yes.
of your depression and the isolation that you felt. And now today, here you are on a podcast talking about your
Yes.
experience. And you also, I think Molly has a phrase she uses, you've turned that pain into purpose.
Hmm.
So you
Yes.
have really been able to utilize the pain in a way to help others. And I want to acknowledge that and thank you for that.
Yeah.
So your
You're
time
welcome.
on the hotline is part of that. I see it as
Yes.
part of that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. It's a
So
blessing, but out of God's for God's obedience. So for my
Mm.
obedience to Him. So
Amen. That he can
yeah.
use wounded women like us who've
Yes.
gone through, we know what it's been like on both sides of the abortion issue,
Mhm.
and what it's like to be saved, delivered, and healed from that experience. And then
Yes.
that's the reason why we have you on the show. That's the reason why we have the show. It's because we want to offer that same hope and healing to you. If
Yes.
you've had an abortion in your past and you have not healed from it, you have not dealt with it, we want to encourage you to take that brave step. Find an abortion recovery group near you. The Rachel's
Yes.
Vineyard, they're awesome. But almost every church, every pregnancy center offers abortion recovery. Well, I'd say a lot of churches, and join us on the healed side, because I'm telling you, it's
Yes.
worth every teardrop. It's worth every memory, every loss, every hurt, to go through that healing and be so liberated from that bondage. Am I correct? I know we all know
Yes.
that experience, and we want that for our listeners as well. And so, if you need to reach the help H3 helpline, it's right there. It's 866-721-7881. It's on the operationoutcry.org website, as well as other abortion recovery resources for
Yes.
you. We're out of time, but I want to thank you, Yolanda. Thank you so
Yes.
much for
Thank you.
coming on the show and sharing your story and sharing the hope and healing of Jesus Christ. And
Yes. You're welcome.
thank you,
Yes.
Mary, and thank y'all for
Thank
tuning
you.
in to More to the Story with Molly White. We'll see you next time. God bless
Yeah.
you, and bye bye.
Bye.